LangFest's Friday Lunch with Tetsu and Joey, brought to you by two dudes, that's me and Tetsu, that have a passion for language learning and want to provide a forum for language learners from all walks of life to exchange on the topic of language learning, its trials and tribulations, as well as communicate relevant information on the upcoming edition of LangFest Montreal, a premier event that brings language aficionados from all over the world together for a very fruitful and entertaining week every year at the end of August. We've been very fortunate to have with us I think the two editions are only last year's, of Elisa. And today
Hi.
we have her as a special guest. Hi, Elisa.
Hi, how are you doing?
So before we get into it, I just want to give you guys a little bit of information on Elisa for those of you who don't know her yet, although she is becoming very
That's right.
popular.
For the very
She's
few of you.
presenting this week at Women in Language, and she's an up and coming polyglot. Okay, so Elisa is a polyglot and language teacher who began teaching languages in an innovative way. She believes in learning more than one language at the same time, which I am a proponent of also. No matter the similarity of differences between the two or more languages. In addition to learning multiple languages herself, she helps others learn languages simultaneously through her unique courses. Although she's not the
Okay,
first
I
teacher
am a
to come up with the
proponent
idea,
of
she's one of the
also.
few who
No,
advocates learning up to 10 languages at the same time. That you'll have to explain to us, Elisa. And let's see how this passion for languages got started. Okay, so Elisa, thank you very much for being here. I know you're very busy and you've been preparing and doing a lot of stuff. You're very active lately. So I mean, I read that you started when you were pretty much 8 years old. Your love affair with languages. Maybe you want to tell us a little about little Elisa and how she got to be the person that you are today.
My passion for language started when I was 8 years old, and I went to Paris with my mom, and I was fascinated by the language. I started learning languages actually much later. Like I learned French at school. I didn't have any English at school, and I started learning language on my own when I was maybe 14, 15, but I didn't know how to do that. So I must say it was in a kind of a messy way. I didn't really have a method. I was just trying to learn other languages. And But I really started when I was 20 years old, and then I started almost immediately many languages at the same time because I started living abroad, and I was so happy to have so many different cultures around me that I kept adding languages because I found it so interesting.
So that's very good. So when you were young, I guess at home you just spoke Italian with
Yes,
your parents,
correct.
I guess,
Yes, yes.
and you got the opportunity to travel when you were 8, and that sort of
Mm-hmm.
piqued your curiosity on
Yes.
languages.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very good. So when you say that you learn simultaneously, or you're a proponent of learning many languages all at the same time, what is your particular approach? How in which order did you learn languages? First of all, I know that you said you spoke English, French. You live in
Mm-hmm.
Germany, so I assume you speak German.
Mm-hmm.
What other languages did you learn, Elisa?
That I learned, and okay, it depends on the level. I speak 8 levels at the C2 level, and five more between A2 and B1. And I tried in the sense that either I tried or I learned for a while. So in total 24 languages.
wow.
Mm, but I cannot claim that I speak all of them. So it means that, for example, I like Hungarian, and when I live in a place where I can practice it, then I'm so happy to get back to it and learn more. But it's not the language that I normally speak. So the first 5 minutes is like I feel like I cannot say anything, but I do know some Hungarian for them. And so, in which order? I started learning French at school. Afterwards, I started learning English, and then German, then Spanish, then Russian, then Catalan, Dutch, Portuguese, and then other languages.
So, can you explain to us for accidental polyglots like myself and Tetsu that maybe don't assign a letter like A1, B1, C, and stuff
Oh,
like that?
sorry.
You know,
Yes.
like what's that? I know
Yeah.
you use that a lot in Europe. In my
Yeah.
case, I,
Yeah.
I, I
Doesn't
I
mean a lot to
either
you.
I
Yes.
have I either have three levels:
Mm-hmm.
zero, caveman, or fluent. Pretty much.
Ah, is also a nice definition.
So,
Yeah, in
what
Europe,
what what?
so yeah, yeah,
Go ahead.
it comes from European common, the common frame. So uh, like it's a one. It's normally it's so some years ago, like I would say I can't remember when, but I think like 10, 15 years ago, um, Europe decided that it was much better to describe what you can do with languages instead of good, very good. Good, very good
Hmm.
what? Because some people can understand very well, but they cannot write, or they can speak, but they cannot. So it depends. You need so this like this description, or so you can find also on the internet. Is like a European Common Frame. Language. So in this moment, I can't remember how
Okay,
it's called. Yeah, but
but
it's
so
yeah,
so if I can ask you, A1, what is that?
yeah.
Like, for example, if you're just starting out in a language, what is it?
You're not even A1. A1 is when you can talk a bit about yourself. You don't connect words with something more than and. um, you can talk about yourself, but you really need help from the other person, the person you're talking to. For example, um, your vocabulary is limited. You do need help from the person you're talking to, and your the areas topics you can talk about are really related to you, your work, and your family. But work not in the sense what you do. Just I'm a teacher or I work there.
Okay,
That's it. A2 is
so
more yeah.
as per your present definition,
Mm-hmm.
A1 level is still, they require some work before you get to A1.
You can there are exams for A1, so you cannot go there and look at them. Of course,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So it's
not
not
just
yeah.
knowing the alphabet, for example, in Greek is not enough.
Mm.
You need
No, not
to
for A1. No.
more and stuff like that.
So it's
That's
not
cool.
advanced. So it's more like you can go to a party, introduce yourself in this language, and you can interact, but like sweating, not understanding so much. Yes, more or less that level.
Okay.
Mhm.
So right now you make a living out of languages, I guess. So you're a language teacher on
Yes.
where do you teach languages? Is
Oh,
there
I teach
a
languages either online, so it depends on the country where. So I changed countries many times. So I've lived in 60 different countries, and more than one sometimes. So I went back to the country, and I taught in language schools, online, at universities, or in international schools. Uh, yeah, in different
did you have
places.
a background in I guess
Teaching.
if you taught in university, that means you studied in languages or
I have. Uh, two bachelors and two masters, and I did CELTA. So I have a bachelor, two bachelors in interpreting and translating, one master in communication international organizations, and one master in so teaching.
hmm and you live in Berlin. I think Berlin is a
And I
city
live in
very
Berlin. I
like
wish I lived in Berlin.
okay,
It's
so
just like, yeah, I live in Germany, but not in
you
Berlin.
live in Germany. Okay. But
Yeah.
Germany seems to be fairly multicultural, a little bit like Canada is, like Montreal is. There's immigrants from everywhere. You really have the chance to practice your language. If you really want to learn a target language, you can find people from that language group around that you can practice with. So I think the similarities are fairly interesting. Are there a lot of meetups and stuff like that there too, or
Honestly, it depends where. If we talk about big cities like Berlin, Frankfurt, Munich, then there are language exchanges
are
like
fairly interesting? Are there a lot of
three,
meetups and stuff like
four
that there too,
every week.
or?
at least.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very nice. But unfortunately, so we do have so unfortunately, it was not related to what I'm going to say. So we do have many immigrants, but then you have to be lucky that the immigrants are, so for example, if you're not learning Arabic, then you cannot really practice your languages. For example, I don't have so many opportunities to speak Catalan here, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But
That's cool.
there are many, but not everywhere. So I don't think there are language exchanges, but not everywhere, unfortunately.
Okay. What's your technique for learning 10 languages simultaneously? What do you recommend?
Mm, I do think there is a difference between teaching 10 languages at the same time and learning 10 languages at the same time. So, as far as learning 10 languages at the same time, it also depends if you had some experience learning languages before or you just start from 0 to 10 languages. Okay, it is also a
Mm-hmm.
difference because if you are
Yeah.
learning on, there is a difference if you are learning on your own, if you're learning with a teacher. So if I talk about myself, I started learning many languages because I want, and the method that I use, I like talking to people, but not because I like to talk. Yeah, it's because for me, it's interesting to get to know other cultures, and a language is not just a structure or many words; it's also the mentality behind it. This is what I like. So this is why I when I was living in Germany, I had the chance to so before I had the chance to I was living somewhere very international, and I started learning, for example, Spanish on my own, and then I would organize like a language exchange every week. And then I said, okay, why not Russian? And I started learning Russian this way. Why not Portuguese? Because there were many Brazilians there. So everyone has his own method to learn languages. For me, I know that it works. It's very important to me when I study. I try to listen to the radio in that language. It doesn't matter whether I understand everything or not, because it's still a training for the brain.
For the year? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And after a while, for example, I did that when I went to live UK, and I couldn't understand the word when I arrived, and after 3 months I could understand everything with so on the radio. So I think it's just the brain has to accustom to separate the words and understand how it works. And so I always listen to the radio in that language while I'm studying, and
Mm-hmm.
I try to study every day. Doesn't if I don't have time, even just 5 minutes. And if I am learning many languages, normally is what I do. So, for example, in this period, I'm learning almost every day Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, and Esperanto. And so I try to do at the very least 5 minutes every day, but then if I can, of course, more. So it's also my passion, and no one says that I have to learn them. So in my free time, what can I do before yesterday before going to bed? I will listen to some Greek. Yeah, that's okay.
That's cool. That's cool.
Do you have a
So,
routine in terms of, you know, Monday is this language, Tuesday is this language, or is you wake up and you feel like, okay, today I'm going to put in 1 hour of this or that language?
I tried different things. I think I must say that I'm someone who likes who likes variety. I don't like doing the same exact thing for 20 years in a row. So I prefer, for example, I know what my priorities are. Like in this period, I especially want to learn, for example, those languages. And if I have time, I do a bit more of Dutch and something else, or but and I think we also should follow what we feel like,
Mm-hmm.
because since no one said that I have to know everything by tomorrow. Uh, if I do what I like, I also invest more time. If I don't feel like studying Arabic in this moment and I force myself, 5 minutes is fine, but then I will hate it. So I don't want it. So what I normally do is that I do the minimum I want to do every day. And then the language I feel studying more, I study more. So according to the day, because everyone is busy. So it's not
mm-hmm.
that I have all day to study. So.
Definitely.
That's interesting. So I ask this question all the time, and I'm going to ask it again.
Mhm.
Like my challenge is to be somewhere. My definition of caveman, of
Ah, I like that.
for German this summer. By the
Mhm.
time August comes around,
Yeah.
so what would Elisa recommend that Joey do in order to get there?
Oh, in which language do you?
German.
So German. Oh,
Okay.
okay. How much do you know already? Zero, really, or just a bit?
I'm probably A-1.
No, no, I cannot believe that. So, and what is so? The question for me is, why do you want to speak it? With whom do you want to speak it? And so, what is your
I
aim?
want to speak it with you when you come. But
Okay.
also, it's just a language that I've always wanted to learn. My great grandfather, I guess, was German, and I owe it to myself to learn German
Is why do you
just
want to?
because I
So,
do. That's all.
I think people get motivated by seeing results. Most people, I think.
Hmm.
So what my
It's
this is
just a
why I
language that I've
normally
always
like
wanted to
such an
learn.
approach. So the approach I'm going to
My
talk
great.
about. So normally when I want to learn a language, and especially if I want to learn it quickly, I try to learn uh, on one hand vocabulary which are in my area of interest. So
Hmm.
for example, I love playing. So I'm not good at all. Okay, but I love playing drums and the piano. Okay,
Oh,
but I don't need to so I don't need the words for all the instruments in the world because I cannot play them. So at the very beginning, I try to learn vocabulary in the areas of my interest so that I can talk about myself, and if I know that I have many friends who play music, also their instruments as well. But otherwise,
Hmm.
it's more like vocabulary because I also want to understand people, not just talk. But it's important to know more or less that you know what you could be talking about. You're not going to talk about philosophy in your first months of German.
Okay,
So
definitely
no.
not.
So I try to concentrate on words which I know are important. We always talk about the future and the past. Always, everyone. We never say, now I'm eating an apple. Never. So you always say, yesterday I did, or I want to do. Yeah. So normally I try to learn words like tomorrow, yesterday, then words, especially verbs, especially verbs to talk about the past. We talk much more about the past than about the future, and I think verbs are the key because if you don't know a word, you can still look it up. If you don't know a verb and it's irregular, no chance they are going to understand you. So I would say that I concentrate on verbs, especially past tense. In German, there is a future tense, but they don't use it so much as like just morgen gehe ich ins Kino. So like tomorrow I go or I'm going to the cinema. They use it much more than I will go, I'm going to go. So it's more like you don't need to know everything, all the tenses at once. So I
Hmm.
would concentrate more on uh, past tense, and I would learn some. For example, I like talking about wishes. For example, I know that they say, if I had more time, I would. Or what would you do? So, and this sentence, this structure is a structure. If once you learn it,
Hmm.
you can talk about anything you want. So, I mean, what I meant is that uh, if you learn the same structure, you can apply to many other
So
areas.
you have to learn the basis.
Yeah. So I think there are many elements. For example, if you learn how to say I have, and then you can say like you can say I have a sister, I have a car, I have something to do. So you know one
Okay.
thing, and you can add the other things.
Okay. So I think I'm already at that level, more or less. But I
Yeah.
still think it's A-1. But it's okay.
Ah.
Uh, what was I gonna say? Um, if somebody wants to have classes with Elisa,
Mhm.
where on what platform do you go in person? Obviously, you work for a school too now. Is that it?
Yes, but so you can find me online. I have a website which is called Speak from Day One with
Mm-hmm.
Elisa.com, and you can also find me on italki.
Okay, so you're also on Italki. Very good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is how you can reach me
That's
if you
cool.
want
And
to
you
send me a
have
message.
you offer classes in the 10 languages.
In
In 10
13
languages.
languages. 13
13
languages.
languages.
Yeah, you
Wow,
can
cool.
choose which one you want to have, but I don't.
Yeah, yeah,
So
one language at a time, obviously, the
yeah,
classes. Yes.
But I'm
Okay,
sure
cool.
you have students who want two languages or three languages at
yeah.
once. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. There are, for example, the idea is that when you learn many languages at the same time, it's not just because you are zero in all languages, you want to improve all them at once, but sometimes it's because you don't want to mix them up. If you, because you could learn languages with one teacher, one language, one other teacher, one language, but when you do it with a teacher who knows the languages you want to learn at the same time, they know first what similarities they have, why you find it difficult, and they can help you to switch from one language to the other. Because if you switch from one language to the other, you learn how not to mix them up. And if you have three different teachers, you can do it, but you first speak one language, and then another hour, another time you speak another language, and then another one. But you don't learn how to not to mix them up. You improve in all of them, but then you don't switch from one to the other during the same
Hmm.
class.
Like, for example, I know a little bit of German now. I've been
Mm-hmm.
studying it for a little while, and I started watching the series. It's an old series
Mm-hmm.
called Lilyhammer on Netflix, which
Okay.
happens in Norway. And
Okay.
Norwegian is very different from German, but
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of links. I think
Mm-hmm.
much more between Norwegian and German than there is between German and English, which to me are two completely different languages.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I listen to them talk because a lot of the show is in Norwegian, and they speak with a funny accent, but it sounds a lot like German
Mm-hmm.
when you listen to it. I don't know if you've ever listened to Norwegian.
Yes, I have. The first 2 minutes I don't understand anything, and then I start to understand some of it.
Hmm. I love the sound of how
Mm-hmm.
the music
Mm-hmm.
is. The language is like music to
Mm-hmm.
me. I like
Ah,
the way they talk.
okay. Nice.
Anyways, so you have when is your talk on women in language?
Today I had a round table, and on Sunday at 3 p.m. Berlin time. Please do the calculation for me.
So that's
Uh,
10 a.m. for us in North
okay, yeah.
America.
Then I have my talk
So
about how
your
to
talk is
speak.
going to be on how to be Elisa.
Learning and teaching more up to 10 languages in one class.
Okay, and your panel today is at what time?
No, it was already. I had
It
it
was
two
already
hours
was this
ago.
morning.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
No, 2 hours ago.
So we
Yes.
already missed it, but we can see it on the
Yes.
website, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
if we want to
Yes.
catch it. Who
Mm-hmm.
did you have on your panel with you?
Who? I had
Yes.
Charlotte from Sweden. Do you know her?
I don't think I've had the opportunity before.
And then Irina from, okay, she's Romanian, but she lives in Finland.
Okay.
Yeah. And then moderator was Kerstin Cable.
Carson Cable, cool.
Yeah. And then the second, like, moderator, but she was like Lindsay, of course. She was
Hmm.
chatting with the people who were watching, so that then she reported the most interesting comments
That's
which
cool.
were being made during
And
the
you're
talk.
happy with the event up to now, your participation?
Yeah,
It seems
yeah.
fun. I joined the opening ceremony yesterday, and there
Okay.
were a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
A
I
lot of
liked it a
people
lot.
were
Yeah,
online.
it's very nice.
Very
Mm.
nice.
It's a nice exchange.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you have any comments or questions, Tetsu, that you wanted to
Yeah.
add?
Well, speaking of events, Elisa, you were at our event last year,
Mm-hmm.
and so Kirsten, Lindsay, and Shannon, they met at LangFest, and
Mm-hmm.
with that they had ideas, and they came up with the women in language. Tell us about your experience at LangFest, and whether it has allowed you to network and made some friends, or changed your perspectives on languages, or your, I don't know, your work maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I liked it a lot. I must say, I don't know whether you know, but I go to almost all language events like that. So it
yeah.
was not my first event, but I liked it a lot. And I also um, met very nice people. And I also met you and Joy, who I didn't know before.
Hmm.
You met some
And
very nice people, and you also met
yeah,
Joey and
no,
Tetsu.
I'm all. And for example, I don't know whether you know him, but Steven, he lives in New York. He's a life coach, and he's a very very
Oh,
nice person. We have
Steven
been in contact
Artinian?
since.
Artinian?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
he's
yeah,
really cool. Very,
yeah,
very nice guy.
yes,
I think he's
yes.
nicer than me and Tetsu.
Oh.
Steven is a really nice guy.
We're gonna tease you with that one for a while.
Okay, cool. So we look very, very forward to your presentation on Sunday, and we look forward to seeing you in Montreal. And I'm going to work hard to be able to impress you and talk
In
in
German.
German if I
I'm
can.
looking forward to it. I would like to ask you to talk with me now in German, but I think maybe another time.
Give it a try.
Yeah,
Wir können ein bisschen
why not?
auf
It
Deutsch
can it
sprechen,
can
ne?
it can
Cool.
provide a little bit of humor to our event. Ich spreche ein bisschen Deutsch.
Mhm,
Mein Name ist Joey.
mhm.
Ich bin ich bin froh, dass Verbe, well, speak with you, das
Das ich
spreche
mit, mhm,
mich
mit
mit
mhm. Dir.
mit dir. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, I look forward to the summer.
Ja, das ist ein bisschen kompliziert. Ich freue mich darauf. I'm looking
Ich
forward to
freue
it.
mich
Mich darauf.
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 Okay. Ich freue
Darauf.
darauf.
Mhm. Drauf. Mhm.
Rauf.
Mhm.
R-A-U-F.
Mm,
Darauf. Ich freue
colloquial, drauf, but otherwise it's
drauf.
darauf.
Darauf.
Mhm.
A lot of work left.
No, this is
A lot of
quite
work to do.
complicated. I will, if you want,
Ich
I
freue
will be
mich
happy.
darauf. I have to take maybe
Ich
a class with
freue.
Elisa.
Mhm. Ah, that's good, good. Yeah. Mhm.
There you go.
Okay.
So
Cool.
I mentioned
So
earlier some folks that you met. We have some comments from Nicola. I'm sure you know him very well. Nicola
Yes.
Vio. He
Mhm.
says hi, and yeah, he put in some links for us regarding the European framework of reference for languages.
Ah, nice. Mhm.
Yeah. So, anyways, thank you for your time, and hey, we could do this again some other time.
Yeah, was
yeah,
fun.
maybe before the event, we'll do some kind of panel. We'll invite some
Mhm.
other wonderful participants and maybe future presenters at our event also. So, Elisa, it's been a pleasure.
For me too. Thank you very much.
And
It was a
thank you
pleasure.
very much for taking the time.
A pleasure.
We look very forward to seeing you this summer. Thanks
Mhm.
for encouraging us and believing in our event.
Of
We're
course.
very happy that you
Mhm.
enjoyed yourself last year.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, that's our reward. That's what Tetsu and I we get paid in smiles. When people smile, we're happy.
Ah.
There you go.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So
Thank you so
just
much.
quick recap: August 21st to 26th, LangFest. We're going to be there, and Lisa will be there too.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
Bye.
you.
everybody. See
Bye
you next
bye.
week.